Covering local prep sports in North Dakota, it's time for the Rural Sports Wraparound. Here to talk the best of sports in your own backyard, here's Nate Coen.
Hello to all of you out there. Thank you for taking the chance to listen to this. We're going to be trying something new today. My name is Nate Coen. You're listening to the Rural Sports Wrap. That's what I'm going to call this podcast. As part of the Breathing Fire podcast network for Minnesota State Moorhead in Moorhead, Minnesota. My name is Nate Coen. Like I said, for those who don't know me, I am a sports writer. I've been a sports writer at the Cass County Reporter in Castleton, North Dakota for 3 years now, going on my fourth season as a part-time reporter at that paper. And that's what I do. I write sports, I cover the beats, and I write a lot of features, and I do a lot of those kinds of things. So that's what I do. I cover primarily Region 1, as it's known in North Dakota, in both Class A or Class B. That it is a rural small town school type deal. This is not a big, this is not your Fargos and your West Fargos and your Davies and those kinds of things. The Rural Sports Wrap, what I want the focus of this to be is to be small town sports. We're going to talk small town sports on this podcast, a lot of who I cover for the Cass County Reporter. So that's going to be the goal of this. Again, my name is Nate Coen. I want to start off, we're going to talk later on in the show, we're going to talk some volleyball. That's going to be the second half after the break. And then we're going to talk some football here in the first half. So that's going to be a ton of fun. I'm really looking forward to that. So let's just dive right into it. Let's talk a little bit of football because there's been some big changes that I want to talk about, especially in football. And the biggest to me is the fact that two local teams that I've covered for the past 3 years, Kindred and the mighty Central Cass, have both jumped up a division. They were both playing in Division A. Now they've both jumped up to 2A. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about how that change has gone and how those things have been, because it's been a lot of fun to see those two schools kind of jump up, and they've really proved that I think they belong. And that's kind of one thing I want to touch on for sure. I think Central Cass and Kindred have Kindred especially, and we'll get into them in a minute, but Central Cass has also done an incredible job proving that I think they belong right where they are. I think that it's very important that they've kind of had the performance that they've had. It's been really, really great. I'm excited to see how that's going to go for Castleton down the stretch, but I do want to talk about Kindred because I think that they have had an absolutely incredible start. 5-0. They're undefeated to start the season. They absolutely thumped Grand Forks Red River on Friday. That was a ton of fun to watch. I'm really excited to see how they finish out the season. They've done absolutely nothing but prove that they belong. They're ranked number 2 in the class right now. And I think that the game where I think we all kind of took back and we stopped and we said, wow, this team is legitimate. They were not frauds. They were not beneficiaries of the fact that they were playing, smaller schools. They were playing schools that, maybe they were a lot better than, when they were playing the likes of your Northern Cass and your smaller town schools. And they've really proved that they belong. And at the game where I think the turning point for that was really when they beat Horace at Horace. I mean, what a game that was. Horace, for those unfamiliar, Horace was your Division 2A champion in high school football last year in the state of North Dakota. So really, really interesting that Kindred kind of goes out and they go and they beat Horace on their home field on homecoming. They went and they beat them. They stopped a 2-point conversion right at the end of the game to seal up the win. And they won the whole deal. They won the enchilada there. And that was really an impressive thing, because if you can go and you can beat the defending state champions, now they're not playing in that class anymore. Horace jumped up to 3A after last season after their win, but Kindred, I think they really proved hey, we're here to play. We're legitimate. And they've got some really incredibly talented players. I mean, I'll touch very briefly on this. Brooks Bacco. God, what a talent. What an athlete that kid is. I mean, if you showed the highlight reel and you kind of barred off everything, you said, I want a Division I coach to guess where this player came from, and you said Brooks Bacco was the highlight, right? You showed him the touchdowns, the interceptions, the fumble recoveries for touchdown, things like that. I guarantee you they'd all say, this kid came from Fargo, this kid came from Bismarck, Minot, or Grand Forks, one of the four, one of those big towns. I don't think anybody is saying that kid came from Kindred, North Dakota. Kindred is absolutely unbelievable that's where that kid is lying, and they've really proven they've got some incredible Division I talent, Division I worthy talent for sure. So I'm really impressed with what Kindred's done to start the season. That is one thing that I certainly wanted to touch on. Now we're going to do a segment that I'm going to call Nate Coen's Team to Watch, and I'm going to kind of highlight a team that I think has been playing really good recently and has been really impressive, either to start their season or they're impressive through the midpoint or they're, I think they're going to go on a big run down the stretch. So we're going to do a thing called the Team to Watch, and we're going to do this later on when we talk about volleyball too. My team to watch this week in our rural sports in Region 1, it's got to be Northern Cass. They're playing in the A division still, so let's kind of move away from the 2A division. Let's go to the 1A division. 1A, Northern Cass, they're currently 4-2. And that's the best Northern Cass football start that I can remember in a long time. I think Northern Cass is legitimate. They're getting some really talented play. They've got really talented players in Hudson Reichel, Brooks Crockett. I almost said Brooks Bacco, but Brooks Crockett. 2 kids, Brooks and Brooks. How about it? Brooks Crockett. Everybody knew that kid was going to be an athlete. I mean, you look at the pedigree of that family. They're all athletes. It's just ridiculous how great of athletes those kids have been for Northern Cass over the years. But Brooks Crockett, he had 4 touchdowns on Friday as the Jaguars defeated Mayport CG 32-0, shut them out. And the nothing is what's important about that to me. The nothing is important because that defense has just been unbelievable. They've pitched 2 shutouts in a row. They beat Mayport CG 32-0 on September 26th. September 19th, they beat Hillsborough Central Valley 6-0, and that was a real Donnybrook of a game. The fact that they had the toughness to go throughout all 4 quarters, pitched a shutout, and they won that game 6-0. That was really impressive. And to tie back to Hudson Reichel and Brooks Crockett, those 2 kids, they connected on about a 40-50-yard pass, got them down to the 1-yard line. They punched it in for a score with less than a minute to go. They won that game. Really impressive stuff from them. So Northern Cass is going to be my team to watch. Let's preview their schedule the rest of the way. This Friday, October 3rd, they go to Oaks. That'll be an interesting game to see. I'm really excited to see what they can do there. Then they will host Ellendale Edgeley Calm. They've got a test with these 2 teams in these 2 games back to back. I think this will kind of prove if they slide to even, I think this will kind of prove where they are. Are they legitimate? Are they really going to go out and surprise us? Or are they kind of, they're definitely better than what I think a lot of people expected them to be. They're definitely better than I think what we thought was going to happen. Now the test is, are they a lot better than we thought? And that's what's going to kind of be proven over these next 3 weeks. Because after those 2 games, they host Valley City, who recently came down from 2A into A. So hosting Valley City, hosting Ellendale Edgeley Calm, and going to Oaks, that's going to be 3 games. It'll be really important to see what they do throughout the way. If they can win one of these 3 games, they secure themselves at the very worst a winning record or a 500 record, because they're 4-2 now. So so they would secure themselves a winning record. Yep. They would secure themselves a winning record with a win in any of these next 3 games. So I'm really excited to see what's going to go on there. It's going to be a blast for sure. It's going to be a ton of fun. So that's my team to watch. Northern Cass going down the stretch. Keep an eye on them. Hudson Reichel, Brooks Crockett. Those are your 2 players to watch, I would say, on that team. Keep an eye on Brooks Bacco, the human highlight reel that he is out of Kindred. And keep an eye on Central Cass because they're kind of making some noise in that 2A division too. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens down the stretch. Reminder, I'm Nate Coen. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Rural Sports Wrap on the Minnesota State Moorhead Breathing Fire Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Rural Sports Wraparound with Nate Coen.
In the second half of the show, I'd like to talk a little bit of volleyball. We're going to talk about volleyball going to 3 classes. That's going to be interesting, and I'm going to give you a little who's who of who I think the teams to watch are in Region 1. We're going to talk a little bit about the dynamic there, and then we're also going to talk about my team to watch. That's what we're going to keep on doing. I'm going to keep on hitting that, the team to watch. So we're going to keep on doing that, and I'm really excited about that. So let's talk first. Volleyball's in 3 classes, and that's really interesting to me because that's something we've seen with basketball. It's something that I think is good for the Activities Association, and I think is good for the competitive balance of high school sports. When I was in high school, I was a big thumper of high school sports needing to go to 3 classes. I was probably because I never went to state in anything, but I really thought that we saw too many of the same teams all the time. We saw too many teams. The smaller schools never really had a chance. And I think that that's what the Activities Association is trying to eliminate with the 3-class system. And I think so far they've done a good job. We're seeing some of those same teams over and over again, but the new B class is really fun. It's really refreshing to see a lot of those smaller schools, your Central McLeans of the world, your Maple Rivers of the world kind of get their chance to go to state. That's a lot of fun to me to see those teams get their chance. So that is one thing that I think is a good thing. I do think that, maybe one thing that we might see tweaked is the fact that we're sending a lot of teams from, one region maybe over to the tournament. And it really seems like once we get to the tournament that we're not seeing great games in the first round of the state tournament. We kind of have to wait till the semis or the finals before we really see, a real thumper of a game. And that's kind of been eliminated because I felt like in the old system, the teams that went to state had to be so good that anybody could beat anybody on any given Thursday, as the state tournaments usually start. That's one thing that I do think has been missing, but I also think that maybe there's been a little bit of a strike of bad luck for those tournaments. I think that they've kind of been they've fallen victim to the fact that they've maybe just had some bad matchups. Maybe, some teams that were they've had a couple teams, like 3-4 teams that were just very dominant to start. And so I think that, we give it years. We see how this plays out with volleyball. I think that the volleyball tournament is going to be absolute chaos this season. I'm really excited to see how that state tournament goes. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be chaos, like I said. I mean, you're going to have all kinds of games. You're going to have games going on at 8 a.m, I think, and multiple locations at once, and it's going to be a total mess. And I think that it's going to be a fun mess, and I'm really looking forward to it. So 3 classes in the local region. I've really been following that A class, that middle class. That's got your Central Casses, your Kindreds, your Valley Cities, your Northern Casses, your Oak Groves of the world. Those are the fun ones. Those are kind of the fun class to talk about, I think, because you kind of scrape off the bottom of that top division, and you scrape off the top of that the lower division, and you kind of smoosh them together into one mega middle class, and it's really fun. And the competitive balance in those classes in basketball has been a ton of fun. It has been absolutely ridiculous. It's just close games all the time. The fields feel really wide open, and that's really good for the sport. And we've seen at tournaments, come tournament time for basketball, we've seen some teams kind of go on some Cinderella runs, and we've seen some teams kind of put together runs that I don't think we would have seen had we been in the old 1 and 2 format. So the 3-class system, I think, has been fun. Your who's who this year, I think, especially when we're considering Region 1 in the A class, which is where I specialize, I think that this is kind of comprised into, you obviously have your teams at the bottom who I think, this isn't our year. They're not really expecting for much. They kind of understand. They see the writing on the wall, right? Like this isn't what we got. So, but then you kind of have everybody above that, I honestly think is in the game and is in the contest. I think that there's kind of a little bit of a subdivision amongst those teams, but I do really think that it's going to be, you're going to have your favorites, I think, and then you're going to have your teams that are going to maybe kind of try and throw a wrench in this whole deal. So this year, I really think I've watched volleyball. For volleyball, it's going to be Valley City, and it's going to be Kindred and Oak Grove. I think those are your 3 favorites in the class right now, in the region. Excuse me. I think that those 3 are probably the 3 that are the most geared up to win the region. They're the most ready, I think. And when you talk about Valley City, they've got great talent. Katie Koka is an absolute world beater for them. I mean, it's been ridiculous to see her game. She had 35 kills in a game against Kindred earlier this year. That Kindred somehow ended up winning. Anytime that you've got a team, I mean, you give up 35 kills to a girl and you still win the game. I mean, that's a real testament to your ability to kind of fight and answer and kind of hold maybe an offense to one dimension. But Valley City, I think Valley City is probably your top favorite. I think they're probably your clear favorite to win this deal. They're going to be a tough win for anybody. Anytime anybody that goes out and beats them, I think that they're kind of thinking they're lucky to get away with it. Kindred, I think they, like I said, they beat Valley City earlier. They beat Oak Grove earlier in 4 sets. They beat them at home in 4 sets. That's important to note that both these games came at home. So that's going to be interesting to note. I think that they are certainly your favorite. We'll talk about them a little bit. But then also Oak Grove, you're defending champions in the region dating back to the 2-class system. They won the Region 1 and Class B last season. And that was a really competitive class. That was a really tough class that had a lot of Central Cass was really good, felt like they were ready. Northern Cass was obviously coming off the high of their 2 championships. They were still world beaters. It felt like Maple River was really good, who's no longer in that. They don't have to worry about Maple River anymore, but Maple River had some really talented, solid seniors. So it was really interesting to see that about them. So they don't have to worry about that now. They've looked really solid. They beat Central Cass in 3 sets earlier this season. They just beat Northern Cass on Monday night in 4 sets. They lost to Kindred in 4 sets, obviously, like I mentioned, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they shake up. I think that they're under new head coach Angie Johnson, who has shown, I mean, she won two state titles with Northern Cass, right? So we don't have to question if she's a talented enough player to win a state championship. She's got that pedigree to win. She's got that pedigree to take that team up to the top. So that's going to be a team that I think is ready to compete. And if they beat Oak Grove, I mean, I don't think anyone's looking at that and they're really surprised. I really don't think they are. But Northern Cass and Central Cass, I think they are ready to play spoiler, I think, in the region. I think they're ready to send a team home earlier than they planned on. I think that they're both geared up. I think Izzy Thompson's a really excellent outside hitter for Central Cass. She's a ton of fun. She's going to be a player to keep an eye on in the tournament because she's just a real threat. I mean, all the time. She's a 35 kill threat kind of player. And in a total opposite stroke for Northern Cass, I think that they have so many girls who are capable of having their big night any given night that they really become unpredictable and they really become hard to plan for, hard to anticipate. They've had games this season. They've kind of had a rocky start this season. I think they're still trying to find their footing under a new head coach. They've got a lot of new contributors. They're kind of trying to mesh together what was old and what's new. And so they're kind of trying to figure it out. I think if they really turn a corner as the season comes to an end, I really think that teams should be worried about them. They've got any girls. They've got I can count 4 or 5 different girls on that team that could come out and give you 15, 16 kills on any given night. So Northern Cass, Central Cass, I think are going to be really fun to watch and see if they can play spoiler come tournament time. That's going to be a lot of fun. Now we're going to talk about my team to watch. This is my team to watch. Kindred. I kind of spoiled it earlier. I said, we're going to talk about them later. We're talking about them now. Kindred's my team to watch. Kindred, obviously, like I mentioned, beat Valley City at home in 5 sets. That was a 5-set thriller. Absolute Donnybrook that game was. 5-set thriller, they win that one. Then they host Oak Grove a little while later. They win that one in 4. That one was a ton of fun for Kindred. And they're just they've proven that they can beat these teams that are at the top. They've got the most important, or not important, I shouldn't say, but they've got the most impressive region resume so far. I think that, they can go out and they can say that they've beaten all these teams. They've got excellent power up front. They've got 3 girls that I think are really, really impressive and are ready to help this team make a run at it. Taylor Sanders was absolutely excellent as a freshman last season for Kindred. She was a great outside hitter, really a power threat. And to be a power threat at such a young age is just, I think it speaks to the testament of how hard of a worker she is. The great Jack Michaels actually was telling me about Taylor Sanders and the pedigree that she comes from, that her mother was was a collegiate athlete at North Dakota State University. No doubt about it that she's kind of got that pedigree. She's really an incredible athlete. She's been a great outside hitter. She's really I wouldn't say she's taken a big step this year, but she's taken a step forward as a sophomore. She's going to I would about guess she's going to take a step as a junior, and then she's going to take a step as a senior. And by the time that this girl gets to be a senior, I think she's going to be a monster. See, another player that I think has really taken a big step, Kate Odegaard for Kindred. She's been another excellent hitter. She's really supplemented that offense and really made it so, teams aren't just worried about Sanders on the outside. They're also worried about Kate Odegaard. I think that she's contributed. She's had a lot of nice games. And right behind her would be the talents of Lila Kittleson, who has also been an excellent hitter for them. And it really just makes their offense flow so much better because, you never know where the ball's going to go. It gives their setters a lot of options. It makes it a lot of fun for Kindred. Here's why I think Kindred is the team to watch. I want you to take note of this schedule coming up. Tomorrow, October 1st is when I'm recording this. Tomorrow, they go to Central Cass and play Central Cass at home. That's going to be a really important game. Those two schools, obviously not friends with one another, so that's going to be we're going to see that. I mean, we're going to see what those teams are made of there. That'll be a good test for Central Cass, especially, to see if they can go and they can defend home court against this Kindred team that I think is excellent and very talented. If you think it gets easy for Kindred after they go to Central Cass, you're wrong. It even gets harder, I would say, as they go to Valley City. So they go to Valley City. I think that one's certain to be another 5-set guy. That's a 5-set. I'm going to put that on. Here's our new segment, 5-set watch. That one is a 5-set watch. I think that absolutely has the potential to be a 5-setter. Here's another one, Kindred and Northern Cass. They host Northern Cass. Kindred went to Northern Cass and beat the Jags in 4 sets earlier this season. Now they've got them at home. I think they'd probably like to see if they can maybe get a sweep of the we're kind of in the dying years of a dynasty, it almost feels like, with Northern Cass. So I think they would maybe they'd like to kind of put the final nail in it. We'll see how that goes. Then they've got a tournament, the Metro Invite, which we're kind of going to skip over for the purposes of this because it only continues to get harder. This is the end of the point I'm trying to make. After they host Northern Cass, so let's recap so far. They go to Central Cass, they go to Valley City, then they host Northern Cass, then they go to Oak Grove. So we're really going to find out what this Kindred team is made of in the next 4 games. That's really going to tell us what we need to know about Kindred. And I think, to be honest, that's going to tell us if Kindred is the outright favorite to go and win this region. They kind of get to coast from there. They've got Hillsborough, Central Valley, Lisbon, and then they go to Carrington, and they host Wahpeton, and then they host Central Cass to close out their season on November 4th. But I think that these 4 games this is clearly, whoever did the scheduling here, thank you, because they've really given us a stretch to watch. This is really going to show us what this Kindred Vikings team is made out of. It's going to be a lot of fun. I keep on saying that because it's just going to be so much fun to see down the stretch. I'm really excited to see how Kate Odegaard and Lila Kittleson continue to be involved in this offense, and Taylor Sanders. Let's see if she takes a step. Is she ready to lead? Is she ready to lead this team to the state tournament? We'll have to find out. And here's the other thing that makes this so great. I think we've got so much great talent here in this region. That's one of the big benefits of that 3-class volleyball system, is that if we don't get to see, say Valley City goes and they run away with this thing in the tournament, well, don't hold your breath that really sucks. We won't get to see Kindred, because these state qualifier games, 2nd and 3rd place in the region, will now get to play state qualifier. So it's possible we could see 3 teams from this region in the tournament. And I think that is excellent for this region, because I think this region is really wide open. And I think that any of those 5 teams that I've talked about, your Northern Cass, Central Cass, Kindred, Valley City, and Oak Grove, I think any of those 5 are ready to go and they're ready to compete. And I think any of those 5 could end up in the state tournament come November 10th is what I've got. No, excuse me, not November 10th. That's when our region tournament starts. November 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. So that's going to be what we need to pay attention to there. And your Division A state tournament is going to be on November 20th, 21st, and 22nd at the Bismarck Event Center. And November 15th will be the date of those state qualifier games. So to wrap up, my name is Nate Coen. You're listening to the Rural Sports Wrap on the Minnesota State Moorhead Breathing Fire Podcast Network. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Rural Sports Wraparound on the Minnesota State Moorhead Breathing Fire Podcasting Network, bringing you the most up-to-date predictions, highlights, and interviews that cover all things North Dakota prep sports.